So Disney has dropped the first 2 episodes for its new Star Wars TV series, Skeleton Crew, and what I want to do in today's video is go through these first 2 episodes and give my first impressions on Disney's latest Star Wars streaming series. Now, going into this show, I'll be honest, I wasn't that excited about it. I think ever since they announced Skeleton Crew and all the way up to its release, I've just not been anticipating it that much. Like, for me, as much as Star Wars has kind of been through a bit of a rough patch recently, I'm still a huge Star Wars fan. I'm always looking forward to new adventures in a galaxy far, far away. But this particular one just didn't really do much for me. Like, obviously, this being the kind of kids on a bike 80s genre is not something that typically appeals to me. You know, Stranger Things is a show that I like, but I don't love as much as everyone else is. I'm still not even fully caught up on that show. And I didn't grow up with movies like E.T. or The Goonies or anything like that. You know, all these properties that are really strong inspirations for Skeleton Crew are just not things that were like a huge part of my life. So going into Skeleton Crew, I wasn't that excited about it, but the reviews were strong and I was looking forward to seeing what this show was able to deliver. So Skeleton Crew, as I said, dropped its first 2 episodes, and it makes sense why Disney dropped them as a pair. A little bit like the first season of Agatha, which we got a few months back. The first 2 episodes really are a kind of complete package and tell us a little complete story, which then is a kicking off point for the main story of the season. Now, because of this, we don't really know where the show is, of course, going to go, but it does tell the story of these 4 kids from a planet called At-Atin who discover something mysterious in the sort of woods area of the planet, and they get taken on this grand adventure. Now, obviously, the story, we don't know where it's going to go from this point, but the important thing to establish for early on is, are these characters I'm going to enjoy spending time with? So let's talk about some characters. First of all, I'll start off with Wim and Neil. Now, these two are 2 best friends in school together, and they were really fun characters. They really reminded me of Greg and Rowley from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. If you've ever read those books or you've seen the film adaptations, they really gave me Greg and Rowley vibes. I don't know what it was. Like, for me personally, like, I grew up reading those books. I still read them now because I just think they're really fun. And to me personally, Wim is very much a Greg Heffley type, and Neil was like a Rowley Jefferson type. I don't know what it was, it's just they really reminded me of them. But Wim is kind of like our main lead character to start off with. He's this very opportunistic kind of kid who, you know, loves the sense of adventure. He wants to kind of break out into the world and do his own thing, but his life kind of holds him back. And he's one of them who kind of runs into things without thinking about it too much, and that often leads him into trouble. But he's a fun character. I was kind of worried based on the trailers that this character of Wim was going to be a little bit annoying, but he's not. He's actually really pleasant, actually, and a really fun character. And then with Neil, maybe my favorite character on the show so far. Just adorable. He's really cute. I know a lot of people thought this was, you know, the same race as Max Rebo. It's been confirmed that he's not, but he certainly looks similar. And, you know, he's just this really lovable, cute character who I just can't wait to see more with him because he just seems really sweet. And honestly, he seems a little bit underappreciated by Wim at certain times in these first 2 episodes. Seems like Wim doesn't quite appreciate Neil enough. So I wonder if that's something that's going to come up in the season. But these 2 as like our first initial pair, I really like them and I'm excited to see more with them. So they are our 2 main male characters, and then we also have 2 female leads in the form of Fern and KB. Now, Fern is very much the kind of leader of this group. Despite the fact I said that Wim was kind of our lead in these first 2 episodes, which he is, once this group kind of comes together and they go off on this journey in the second episode, Fern is very much the one who takes charge. She's the leader of this crew, and I liked her because she seems like she has this kind of street smarts to her, something that Wim would like to have but doesn't have, whereas Fern just kind of naturally has it. You know, she's able to take control of these situations, take command, and I thought it was really good. She honestly reminded me a little bit of the Doctor from Doctor Who in certain aspects, where, you know, she's kind of a part of a crew, they're going on these kind of wild, wacky adventures, but she's able to kind of keep everyone grounded and take control, take command, and I like that. I thought she was a cool character. And she also has some seeming bigger connections to perhaps the government of the planet, but that hasn't really been explored too much. And then we have KB, who I don't really have much to say about, to be honest. Like, she's definitely the one of the 4 who gets the least amount of development in these first 2 episodes. We don't really know a lot about KB, but she seems cool. You know, she's definitely very tech-orientated. She seems to wear this visor that she keeps on majority of the time, but it's not really explained yet as to why. So I'm sure with KB over the next few episodes, we'll get a bit more exploration into her backstory, but overall, like, these 4 main kid characters, I actually really liked them, which was a big shock for me because I honestly thought I wasn't going to find these characters compelling. In terms of other characters on the show, we of course have Jude Law playing Jod. Now, just to make you fully aware, I'm sure if you're watching this review, you've already seen the episodes, but Jude Law, he isn't really in these first 2 episodes at all. He's literally in the last 5 minutes of the second episode, so we don't really know much about him at this point. But there are a couple of questions that I do have about this character. For one, it is shown that he is Force sensitive. We see him grab the key from outside the cage into his hand. So clearly this guy is in tune with the Force in some way, shape or form, which of course leads Wim to believe that he's a Jedi. Now, I guess the question is he a Jedi really, or is he a pilot, or is he a pirate? Now, personally, I don't think he's a Jedi, at least not in the traditional sense. I think he might be, he's clearly Force sensitive to some degree, but I don't believe he was necessarily a part of the Jedi Order or anything like that. If he was like another Order 66 survivor, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed with that because we've got so many of them in the Star Wars universe at this point. It's not special anymore. But I think he might potentially have some kind of history with the Jedi, just he wasn't like a typical like Jedi Knight or anything like that. I personally think that he is someone who is Force sensitive, maybe began training in the ways of the Force, but eventually went on his own path and went down something a bit more villainous. And that's where we actually see him at the beginning of the first episode when he raids that ship. Now, it's not confirmed that the lead pirate of that crew is Jude Law, but it's gotta be, right? Like, that's gotta be Jude Law. He looks, under the mask, you can't see his face, but you can hear his voice. And it's a very British voice, which, of course, Jude Law is British. It sounds like Jude Law. Obviously, there is like a voice distortion technique going on there, but it sounds enough like Jude Law to the point where I'm like, yeah, it probably is. So for me, the character of Jod, he seems interesting. I'm interested to learn more about him. But in terms of this mystery about who he is and who he's going to be, I personally think he's definitely that pirate from the opening scene of the first episode. And we also have Nick Frost in a voice role for the droid of this show, SM-33. Of course, every Star Wars project has to have its signature droid, and here we have SM-33. I like him. He's cool. He's fun. Obviously, Nick Frost is great. He's always great in everything he does. And in this, he just delivers this kind of fun, old, kind of pirate voice to the character, who's very loyal to his captain, and then he becomes loyal to Fern, who's kind of like the new captain of this group. I think he's a fun character. I like him. I'm excited to see more with him. I don't think he's going to be a huge role or anything like that, but, a good companion droid is always a good character to have on these Star Wars projects, and I think that Nick Frost as SM-33 is a good addition to the cast in that way. Now, as I mentioned, the characters in this show are from a planet called At-Atin, which is a brand new planet to Star Wars. We've never seen that before. And I loved exploring this planet. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, this was something we've not seen in Star Wars before, which is this kind of suburban, sort of white picket fence planet where people live in this kind of really nice environment. We're seeing like kids go to school on like a school tram, and we're seeing people live their normal day-to-day lives, like very mundane stuff, but mundane stuff within the Star Wars universe. And I really enjoyed that. We've never seen that quite to this degree in Star Wars, and I thought it was just really interesting. I always like seeing stuff like this, just kind of average, everyday people in this wild, fantastical world. How does that look? And I think this gave us some really good ideas. Now, of course, the planet of At-Atin, there does seem to be this mystery surrounding it, where in episode 2, our characters go to this pirate spaceport, and they say they're from At-Atin, and all these characters, these pirates are like, no, you're not. That's not true. It's a myth. So there is this kind of mystery about At-Atin in regards to the fact that the wider galaxy doesn't seem to believe that this planet exists for one reason or another. And the residents of the planet do talk about this barrier, that, they can't go past the barrier. So it seems to be that this planet has been hidden from the world or from the galaxy for one reason or another. And I'm sure that's something that the show will explore further on. I wonder if that's something to do with the kind of government history of the planet or something like that. This show does take place in between episodes 6 and 7. This is kind of in the timeline of The Mandalorian. So I'm wondering, maybe does this planet have some kind of like empire remnant to it or something like that? Like, was it funded and kind of set up by the empire? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I think it is pretty interesting. I like the planet overall. I think it looks really cool. I love spending time on it. And I'm also really excited to find out why people don't know about it. Now, the direction of this series was the one thing that I was really looking forward to going into it, because they have gotten some really, really strong directors for this series. Now, in these first two episodes, we have the first episode directed by John Watts, who you'll know most from directing the Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy. And I think that first episode was handled really, really well. John Watts is kind of the main creative force behind this series. I know he directs a few of the episodes, and it was done really, really well. The second episode was directed by David Lowery, who brought us A Ghost Story and The Green Knight, both of which are great films. And bringing someone of that talent onto a Star Wars project is really, really exciting. And I'm excited to see the rest of the episodes for the season, because they've got some really strong names like Lee Isaac Chung and the Daniels. There's some really awesome directing names they've got in this series that I just can't wait to see what they bring to the Star Wars universe. And these first two episodes, they were directed really well. I really like the vibe. I think they just absolutely nailed it. This does feel like classic Star Wars, but in a refreshing way, not in the kind of nostalgia bait kind of way, like in just like, this is a fresh new take on a beloved franchise. So I think they're doing a great job so far. So yeah, so far so good on Skeleton Crew. Again, my expectations for this were very, very low. I wasn't really expecting much from it, but coming out of it, I was actually really impressed. I really liked it. I thought it was really fun, really enjoyable. Again, I really warmed up to these characters really, really quickly. And it does set up and establish these kind of mysteries about the world and where these characters come from that do have me intrigued. And Jude Law's character kind of being this kind of weird third party in the middle of it all does also keep me coming back. Like, I want to know more about his character and his backstory. So for me personally, I really liked Skeleton Crew. I'm shocked. I didn't think I would, but I was impressed. But what I want to know is, what do you guys think about the first two episodes of Skeleton Crew? Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Did it surprise you? Were you looking forward to it? Or are you not really a fan? Make sure you let me know your thoughts down below. And if you want to see more content like this and more Skeleton Crew reviews coming up over the next few weeks, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads from me. And I hope to see you guys again next time.